Shall I put on a slide of what we discussed?
Anybody want to go? If not, that's absolutely fine, and we'll go on to the next section. Okay.
Graham, I managed to join the Otley team, but I've received a direct link through email.
Fabulous. Okay, there's a way of doing stuff. Fingers crossed. So I think we had about 4 people that were left in the main hall that couldn't access the breakout rooms. So again, apologies for that. We'll try and look at why that's happening and fix that for next time. Just checking the chat.
We had a very good chat though whilst we were here.
Yeah, good. So all is not lost. All is good. Right. So we'll catch up a bit of time. So I'm pleased to introduce Rachel Cooper from Leeds Older People's Forum, who is on the call, and she's going to talk to us about social isolation and loneliness with co-design. So I am going to share some slides. Hopefully Rachel's still there.
Yeah.
Yay, good.
Shall I just turn my camera on briefly, because I find it a bit weird if people don't know what I look like, so briefly before my slides blank
you feel comfortable with.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Graham.
No problem. So over to you. If you just say next slide, please, when you need the next slide.
I will do. Thanks. So yeah, as Graham said, my name's Rachel. I'm the Chief Exec of Leeds Older People's Forum. It's great to be here. I looked on the list of attendees and there's a lot of people who I haven't met before. So it's really nice to be speaking to a new audience and making new connections. So I'll give you a bit about LOPF, just in case you haven't come across us before. So we're a third sector organisation. We're led by older people, so in a very similar fashion to the neighbourhood networks who we work alongside. Our board is made up of older people. I'll talk a bit more about how they're involved in our work a bit later on, but we're there really to amplify the voices of older people in decision making, sort of similar to Health Watch in some regards. So on various decision making boards and through campaigns. We also have a number of projects that work around particular issues of importance to older people. And one of those is called Time to Shine. And yes, that's around social isolation and loneliness. And, you know, from hearing back about your consultation exercises, that's something that means a lot to people, either specifically in terms of loneliness, or people talk about it in broader terms about having a connection, about their relationships with the family members, their access to groups. I think even in a broader sense about the environment, you know, that's about having a connection with your local area and being in a space where you can be around others, and it's something that's really important to people's well-being. So yeah, our Sunshine programme, it's in its 6th year. We're pleased that we've been invited by the lottery to extend it for a year because there's been a lot of disruption because of COVID. So we're hoping to run for a bit longer. Through our programme, we've taken quite a holistic approach. So there's 13 other areas across the country that also run similar programmes to Time to Shine, funded by the lottery, but they have often focused on particular a particular means of addressing, like they've really focused. So they might have focused on age-friendly approaches or asset-based and applied that to their whole programme. But when we spoke to older people and stakeholders, really there were multiple things that needed to happen across different arenas and really act together to make change. So I guess similarly to what you might call systems thinking in health, you know, we felt like we needed to change some of the societal attitudes, change things at policy level, but then also working at a very individual action focused way. So what could individuals do in whatever guise, and really supporting communities. think it's also worth mentioning that we take something called a test and learn approach. So loneliness is really complicated and it's not something that we're going to solve. You know, we can alleviate it for people, and I think we really have a moral duty to you know, make things help make things better for people, but you're never going to replace replace somebody's loved one, you know, if they've lost their husband or wife or partner and that's making them feel lonely. But there are certainly things that we can do to help people feel happy and well. So yeah, the test and learn approach is very much about saying, well, we don't have all the answers, but let's try and learn together. And I think that's a really important part of co-design. And then just briefly to say, yeah, we use asset-based approaches in the way that we work, and sometimes that's funding particular projects that use a very pure ABCD approach with a community builder and community connectors. But otherwise, it's making sure that we work in that strengths-based way through all the partners that we work with, and that we're valuing what people can bring. So yeah, if you want to change the slide, Graham. Oh, sorry, I've done that one. Go past. Oh, don't know what's happened there. Do you want to go on and see? Oh. So yeah, so briefly, we haven't got much time together, but maybe it's a bit funny on my screen. Sorry, finding it a bit harder to follow. Yep. So, sorry, I'm just gonna have to. Oh, that's it. No, go back one now. There you go. So, oh, all right, I can't see it on that. Let me just get it up on my screen. So yeah, briefly, I wanted to talk about, just say what our offer is to you. You know, I hope this is the start of a conversation and that we can work together in future. And there's things that we've already got in place and learning and whatnot that we could share with you. I want to talk a little bit about loneliness as a health issue because it's maybe not as central as it should be. And then share a bit of our learning and go into a group discussion so we can develop our thinking a bit more. So yeah, next slide. So yeah, a few of the things that we have on offer through Time to Shine. You can sign up to be an age and dementia friendly organisation, and my colleague Sarah is here today, so you'd be able to talk to her today or after the session. And Sarah runs that programme and supports organisations to be age and dementia friendly. It's actually a really good tool for co-design because you can work with your local community to say what would make your area age and dementia friendly. Actually, you've got wealth of information from your consultation that you've done already, and you can come up with a plan together and action that together and make a very public commitment. You could also become an age-friendly ambassador, and that's kind of similar to being an age-friendly organisation, but very much a personal commitment. So you could be signing up to make a personal commitment around co-production or you know, handing more power back to older people or something in that vein. And obviously there are other schemes available. Child-friendly, for example, have ambassadors as well. Now that we're in year 6 and with us taking this test and learn approach, we have a whole wealth of learning materials and a worker that can do some training or what we call learning facilitation. So if that's useful to you, then we could offer that. We have in particular some toolkits and resources and sharing of learning around how to utilise link workers to work with people around loneliness, toolkits around ABCD, for example, which may be of particular interest. And as I said, we've got this new opportunity around year 7. So, you know, it'd be great to send you our questionnaire and have discussions with you about what you'd like us to see us do in year 7 and how that might be a bit of a springboard or a bridge to, you know, looking at new ways of tackling loneliness and something that has a real legacy. Okay, Graham? Change the slide for me. Yeah. So yeah, although loneliness, I think, is talked about a lot, particularly in the public sphere, and we've been working on it for quite a while, as have neighbourhood networks and others. It's still not quite as central in terms of it being a health concern in the same way as things like obesity or smoking is, but there's a wealth of evidence to show why we should be taking it more seriously. Given that we're talking about co-design and co-production, I think the fact that people are saying it to us should be case enough. But if you take a look on the Campaign to End Loneliness website, and I've left the link there on the slide, this is just a snapshot, but they've got a lot of well-referenced statements around how it increases the likelihood of mortality, it being a risk factor around frailty, but also the impact on services and on spending ultimately. But nobody wants to be accessing health services because they're lonely and their associated conditions. People want to be supported to have a good life, and I think that's a real opportunity for us to look at designing things together and we could hopefully see a real impact on reducing healthcare usage. Next slide, please. And I think on the flip side of that, so this is David, who's on this call today from Crossgates Good Neighbours. He was involved in a part of the programme that we ran that's now become mainstreamed, which is called SWIFT, which was designed to support the sort of link, well, the link workers weren't there then, but social prescribing and those type of workers, because when we spoke to older people, what they needed in addition to that referral was to have that time for someone to work with them in a real person-centered way and support them and do that kind of hand-holding into services. David was involved as a volunteer, and they've gone on to have a genuine friendship, and he supports Paul, or they go along as friends now, not at the moment because of COVID, but to the Different Strokes group. And I think that's really, illustrating that, in terms of tackling loneliness, if we can make people less lonely and better connected, actually they can better live or be happier in spite of some of the health conditions that they're living with, whether it be stroke or something else. Okay, so final slide, just a bit about our learning. So I've had to condense it a bit. I've tried to give you a flavour in terms of loneliness and isolation, but in a context of co-design. So I'll not go too much into accessible opportunities because I think that Hannah really covered this, but here I was, the learning was around things like starting at the right time for people. So in terms of older people, that you don't want to start at 9 o'clock. People like to have the right to use their bus pass, and they, want to be able to have time to get ready in the morning. So it's thinking about things particular to a group that makes it more accessible. I think a big one is often people are really turned off by meetings, but also, it takes a certain amount of confidence. I think back to Hannah's point about, would my mum understand this? I often think, well, would my mum and dad want to do this? Like, would they really want to come along to a meeting? So something that engages people in a different way and does an activity but really draws out their feedback and is an offer to them in themselves and going to them where they feel comfortable, whether that's been out and about on the street or even at people's homes or access or speaking to them in the course of your work. So just a second, flip in between slides. So we also found that co-design itself offered opportunities for friendships. So it wasn't about, oh, let's design something together and then afterwards we've got something that makes people better connected. Actually, people became connected through the co-design process, and you should give them opportunities to make those connections and socialize. And it enabled them to connect with different people in their community that were quite, they were different to them and of different generations. So it really helps in terms of building that community, and then they'd see each other out and about and chat, and that all, you know, builds up to something quite rich. It also had a positive impact on people's self-esteem and confidence. And again, if you're feeling more confident and you have a higher sense of self-worth, then you're much more able to go to groups or connect with people. You know, we have a lot of groups as a way of tackling social isolation and loneliness, and actually a lot of people don't feel comfortable in groups. So having more confidence to access things, you know, is really beneficial. But obviously we need to do some co-design to find alternative ways than just groups to support people. I think, as already been mentioned, interventions are much more sustainable when they're co-designed. I think, you know, that should hopefully be obvious, as, you know, if people have said it's what they want, then, you know, it's more likely to be the right thing. But also getting them involved in delivering it is not saying to them, oh, you can ask this of us and then we'll do it back to you. It's about people delivering things themselves wherever possible, but also not being afraid of there only being one or two people to start with. You know, you've got to, you know, a lot of the organisations that we funded, you know, they started with one person, and it's, you know, it's been community members and supported by neighbourhood networks and other third sector organisations often, that have just kept plugging away at it and just trying different methods and thinking who isn't here and who should be here and how can we reach them, and going on that learning journey together. Intervention should always be based on trust and be person-centered once they're being delivered. It doesn't, you know, we often talk about different projects, so it might be like Men in Sheds, or, you know, a particular thing like Good Gym, but actually, you know, it's not necessarily what you deliver, it's how you deliver it, and people having that trust in you and trust in the community that's supporting them. And sometimes trust already exists even if they haven't connected with you before. So often people have heard of the neighbourhood network in their area, and if they're only stepping through the doors for the first time, they might still feel a sense of trust because other people have talked to them about the neighbourhood network. But similarly, you might have that with certain professions. So people might already be quite trusting of their GP, and that's something that you can build on. Loneliness is really complex. So in designing any solutions together, we have to consider that it's quite context specific. So it might be about bereavement. It might be about the fact that you've got a new diagnosis and actually you don't know anyone else who has that condition that you have. And that can be a really lonely feeling. It's also quite time specific. So in terms of bereavement, bereavement, it might be when your partner died, or it might be that everyone else is out enjoying summer. So we found that summer is often as lonely for people as winter, because they see that everyone else is out with other people and they feel quite lonely. And finally, just to say, we want to create genuine friendships. It's not about bringing people together in a room and them just socialising once a week on a Monday. It's about creating a genuine connection, but also that sustainability and them being able to go off and be friends outside of that, and that they don't need to rely on you or that group. They can be independent of you, and I think that's what we'd all want. None of us want to rely on a befriender or rely on a service. We want that independence and dignity. So that's the end of my presentation. We're going to talk in the workshops a bit about power, and Hannah talked about power quite a bit in her presentation. It might make people feel a bit uncomfortable, and I think that's absolutely fine. That's a good way of us kind of learning. But you know, co-design and co-production is very much about recognizing the power that you hold and being able to recognize how you can hand that back to communities. One of the most challenging things we did was hand over 1.5 million to older people to commission to make them the commissioners, and we thought, given the kind of organisation we are, that that'd be quite easy, and ultimately we did hand that power over to them. But when you're the worker that's responsible for the the monitoring and making sure everything neatly fits in the program, and you can, you know, say to funders, this is, you know, we've done things how you expected of us. That can be quite challenging. You know, you bring your own thoughts and opinions and experiences to the table, and trying to put that to one side was quite a learning process for us. So I think, you know, as thinking about the power and acknowledging the power that we already hold and thinking through that is a good first step. Thanks, Graham.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rachel. Appreciate your time going through that. So we're going to break out again into our local care partnership groups, or if you are unable to break out, just stay in the main hall and we can have a discussion amongst ourselves. So from now until 11:30, we're going to do this. So again, go into your breakout rooms, get tea, coffee, snacks, comfort breaks, and be ready to come back for 11:30. But the question that we'd like to ask you is that one on the screen. So the central kind of idea of co-production is shifting power to communities. So there might not be enough time to handle both of these questions, but in your breakout group, could you discuss and list all of the ways that you hold power in your role? And then potentially for homework or to think about outside of this meeting, how could you share that power with the community to work together to find ways of preventing or easing loneliness? So there's a couple of big questions, as Rachel said, around power. So if you would like to jump out of this main hall into your breakout rooms, if you can, and we'll see you back here in 20 minutes, and we'll do a bit of brief feedback. So see you in 20.